Hello and welcome to the Daddenbury Podcast. As always, my name is Mike, aka Daddenburied, and joining me tonight from the living room because we still haven't figured out how to do this with with any equipment or two people in the same place is my wife, Mom and Buried, also known as Heather, which people were shocked to learn, and you were distressed to read that they learned and started calling you
I don't
Heather.
really need you spreading that around, but
I always find it weird when you call me MJ in a post and then somebody calls me, someone I've never met, or maybe you've never even interacted with at all, calls me MJ. But what are you going to do?
I know, because most people don't even call you MJ.
No. Look, it's the price of fame. We are public figures. We're just dominating the blogosphere, the gramosphere, the podcast sphere, right?
Okay, why don't you dominate by getting some new equipment? Because I'm not doing this again until you do, okay? Get your shit together, and then maybe I'll come back on. I'll
put it on the honey-do list, the ever-increasing honey-do list, which I should probably be tackling. You know what? I'm not going to get into that. we'll cover.
You should be tackling any of it? Okay.
We'll cover that. We'll cover that offline. We'll take that offline. We'll table that for now, and we'll circle back. Anyway, this week on the Daddenbury Podcast episode, we're going to talk about Who Made Who, the AC/DC song from one of my wife's favorite movies, Maximum Overdrive. Right?
Huge fan.
First of all, that's not a joke. You have childhood memories of that movie, and it's also
I don't love the movie. I don't think it was a good movie.
Well, no.
What had happened is I grew up in the middle of the country. There was like one VHS store. Remember when those happened? And it wasn't like Blockbuster. We didn't have a Blockbuster.
No.
It was like the size of a bathroom, and that's where you would have to go rent your VHS tapes. And it took like literally half an hour, 45 minutes to get to town. So when my dad would go rent videos, he would just rent them indefinitely.
You know what?
And he was a truck driver. So I'm sure we owe a lot of fines on Maximum Overdrive.
Also, he was a truck driver, which thematically links up with the film Maximum Overdrive.
I said that. You clearly weren't listening, but yes, I did in fact mention my truck driving dad.
As a husband, it is my duty to not listen to my wife, and I was just holding up my end of the bargain.
This is what I'm learning today.
I do want to say that I said, so we are talking about who made who in terms of what traits our kids get and who they get them from, and then how couples use their decisions or their beliefs on who got what from who to have arguments and to weaponize their children. As my other co-host Pete likes to say, he loves to weaponize things. He weaponizes his parenting and makes everything a competition and that kind of stuff. And that certainly happens to us. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit more about Maximum Overdrive, which was directed by Stephen King, and it was co-directed by Cocaine. Yeah, co-directed by Cocaine, which you should definitely keep that in mind when you watch the film. If you do ever again, I would not recommend.
I mean, I could have told you that the co-director was Cocaine, having seen the film, and inordinate amount of times.
I really like the part where the vending machine kills a man. But anyway, what happens in Maximum Overdrive is the machines come to life and they wreak havoc. That's not what we're going to be talking about
this
today.
is more than I expected to talk about Maximum Overdrive in my life.
I should start a movie podcast just to babble about movies. I should. I think I'd be great at it because I'm great at everything, just like our kids. And they get their greatness from me, which is what we're going to get into in this episode. But what's funny is, so we went away a couple of weeks ago on winter break, and the people at Chevrolet loaned us a Chevrolet Tahoe, which was great because it was 5 times the size of our car and 3 times the size of our apartment, and it allowed us to avoid our kids. But one of our kids fancies himself like a tech expert, right?
Oh, God, yeah. But first of all, no, some real shout out to that Chevy Tahoe. I would still be living there if it was an opportunity that was available to me. I would live in their car over my house.
It was great on the road. It was great where we went, but it's a little bit tougher to park it in the city in Brooklyn without driveways and stuff. But I loved the gadgets and the bells and whistles, and so did the kids because they had seat back TVs and my 10-year-old was able to figure out how to hook those up, and he thinks that he gets his tech stuff from my brother, which makes no sense unless there's something you would like to tell me about your relationship with my brother, which this is getting really weird, even weirder than the Maximum Overdrive conversation. But there is some funny stuff in here where a couple of there's at least one instance where somebody talks about the traits that their kids get not coming from either of them, and they talk about kind of somebody else in the family that they got the traits from. It's not as gross as I made it sound, and continue to make it sound by talking about this. But the Chevy Tahoe was great. Thank you to Chevy for letting us borrow that. They are not sponsoring us, unfortunately. But hey, you know what? I'd let them, right? I'd let Chevy sponsor this. But yeah, my son figured out how to use the seatback TV thing and to hook up his Nintendo Switch to it and stuff, which is something you could not figure out. Driving shotgun, that was one of your responsibilities. You failed.
You also could not figure it out.
I was driving. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't look at the
You
machines.
were also told to do it in advance, and you were given ample time while I was packing and doing everything else to handle the problem. So, So my kids also get their amazing packing abilities from me, by which I mean they say, honey, skills. Pack my stuff. And you do it. What delegating is a great skill that I think our children have both inherited from me. I'm a great delegator. Yeah. Well, their executive functioning, which is non-existent, is you. That's all you. So this is what we're going to get into today.
We are going to get into who made who, where our kids got their traits, and where some of your kids got their traits, whether from you or your partner. And that I mean you, our listeners, or your partner, and even some wild cards that were thrown into the mix. And we will get into that, and a lot of bickering, I think, because Mama Buried is on edge tonight, guys. You know what? She doesn't like the tech setup we have. We didn't have our 10-year-old help us, which might have made a difference. We should have brought him up here to help us, but instead he's locked in the basement so he does not interrupt this, which probably will not prevent him or his brother from eventually interrupting this. Also, Mama Buried's phone may fall at some point during this. I just want everyone to be aware that is not a Maximum Overdrive situation in which her phone is trying to attack her. It is just, again, another example of my poor organizational and preparation skills, where things are not set up correctly. I will try to be better, honey.
And on top of this, I'm doing this with tea. This is some bullshit right here.
Well, you know what? I'm not doing dry March because we now are in March, but I am trying to do dry Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I've been crushing it. Right? Are you proud of me?
No.
Oh, see,
you're fine.
My kids not being proud of me is a trait that they get from their mom. Right?
Oh,
they inherited
moments.
Inherited your lack of pride in your husband from you. So congratulations on that one. And we'll be right back after this. I have to wipe my tears away. All right, we're back with the special Maximum Overdrive Who Made Who episode. We should get Stephen King to sponsor us. It's a great joke. I love it. You love it. I was a surprise for you. You don't even know the song Who Made Who, probably. It's the theme of the movie.
Not at all.
It's in the movie because it's about who made who. The
song that everyone knows is like, she was a fast machine.
Yeah, that's an AC/DC song. That's
sure.
Shook me all night long. That has nothing to do with Maximum Overdrive.
It's in the song. It's in that movie.
Oh, look, again, I don't have an encyclopedic
knowledge of this. Either deep take AC/DC for Maximum Overdrive.
First of all, don't use my slang that people don't understand. And it's deep cut, not deep take. Okay? You like that? Crushed. I crushed you. Okay. So that's what we're talking about this week. Who made who, by which I mean where our kids get their traits and how we accuse each other, and how a lot of married couples and parents accuse each other of giving their kids worse, the bad traits and getting all. So look, going through the comments that I got, the prevailing theme of the comments is all the women are saying all the shitty traits come from their husbands. And it's mostly women that listen, which may be, or that comment at least this week, that may be the reason, but it's very much what happened.
Well, I think, I would give credit to some, positive traits from you.
Oh,
and also realize that, there's definitely some shit that I do that, they got, whether they want it or not, or whether or not I want them to have it. This is life. I guess some of my parents' baggage I'm carrying around still, so it's what happens.
What happens, right? We all carry that baggage. So before we get into it, I want to remind everybody that you can listen to the Daddenbury Podcast featuring myself, Daddenburied, and either my lovely wife, Mom and Buried, or my friendly non-Instagram, non-social media using co-host Pete hopefully every week on it's not iTunes anymore, Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. We would love it if you would like and subscribe and tell your friends, leave comments. You can go to YouTube and watch us there. No one does that, but you can leave individual or comments under individual episodes there. I promise we will get some better equipment here, so it will be.
Yeah, not today. Today, I'm so fed up. I'm just like eating cookies on YouTube. This is what I'm doing.
You didn't even offer me any cookies.
Zero fucks.
please don't watch YouTube for this week. But in the future, if Mom and Buried is on again, it will only be because I have gotten better equipment, and we will hopefully look better on YouTube. I can't look better. I look pretty great with my beanie.
Amazing.
You can also throw us some money on Patreon or Anchor if you want. And we even have a merch shop, which still exists. shop.spreadshirt.com/dadandburied. So anyway, I mentioned we took the lone Chevy Tahoe. We drove that up to Lake Placid, site of the 1980 U.S. Olympics Miracle on Ice. And then we showed my son Miracle with Kurt Russell. He hates sports, which he got from you, I guess, because I like sports. But you look sort of like sports.
I like sportsish. I don't know. Maybe he just got it from him.
Well, where did he get
personal interests?
Well, that's true, right? So that's one of the things that, like, a lot of these people leave their comments. They're like, "Oh, my son got this from me, or he got this from his husband." A lot of shit, it's just the secret sauce that is your kid. They have their own traits that don't necessarily come from somebody else, or maybe they have one that like skipped a generation from like your great grandfather or something like that. What do you think about that theory?
Sure. I mean, apparently he has his tech traits, which again, the equipment is not from you or me.
Bullshit. First of all, I know what I'm doing. It's not like he's building robots, right? He's doing mostly basic tech stuff that I can do. Well, yeah, he may be, but it's more of an interest.
I mean, that's also school and education and stuff like that.
And the 21st century and the fact that he's growing up with all this stuff, right? Like, hand him a VHS. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, but I will crush it. I will crush it.
A VHS?
Yeah. Okay. You know that one time on eBay, I bought a dual VHS thing so that I could rent movies and then dub them or something like that. I did not dub Maximum Overdrive.
Do you know what? I do know this because when I started dating you and you lived in a bedroom the size of a bathroom, you still had it. It was well into the 2000s. And you still had it.
You know what? I knew what I'm doing. I was a curator and I was collecting excellent films. Anyway, so it's funny because somebody on here said that the fact that their son doesn't throw anything out or saves everything was a trait that was inherited. Now, is being a hoarder or a pack rat a trait you get from one of your parents? What do you think?
I don't know.
Outside.
Yeah,
there's a motorcycle outside. Yeah. So I thought what was funny, so you alluded to the executive functioning thing, which is also something that goes along with ADHD. You like to claim that I have ADHD, which has not been diagnosed and has not been verified by anyone except you and one of your friends who like to say I have ADHD. And you know what? I wish I had ADHD because
actually, to be fair, Overwine, me and several of my friends have diagnosed you.
How many of them are doctors or psychologists? Zero? Or neurologists?
Zero. But
thank you. Case closed.
A lot of them have ADD or ADHD.
So what? So what? Just because if someone has cancer, are they suddenly qualified to diagnose when someone else has cancer?
I mean, that's not at all the same thing.
You know what? I just crushed it. I just hammered you into the ground. I won that one again.
With that. I don't care. I don't think that you in any way, to clarify, like, you know, that your things would manifest exactly like our son, who does, you know, have confirmed ADHD. Yeah. But there are definitely some things in there that make you scratch your head and be like, interesting.
My desk is a mess. That's one thing that you think indicates that I have ADHD.
You manifest an anger with your like frustration and stuff, and you can't deal with like too much going on at any time. Like,
no, that's called stimuli, being a parent.
You lose your mind.
That's called being a dad. That's what that's called.
True. Some people are like way more chill.
Yeah, well, they're.
But you know, I say this though, I come from a good place in saying that like his anxiety diagnosed.
Yeah.
Comes straight from me,
100%.
My diagnosed anxiety disorder. I'll own that. That's me. That one's
the only anxiety I have is my anxiety over dealing with your anxiety. You like that?
Sure.
I'm gonna get it after this one, folks.
What about anxiety over your kids? You seem to have a lot of anxiety with, like, you know, dealing with them sometimes.
Who doesn't have anxiety over their kids and raising healthy, happy children who are going to turn out okay, right? Everybody does. That's a sign. You know what? It means I care. I care a lot, which is that's a movie reference. That movie starring Rosamund Pike. You love when I do this. Does anyone
ever get to the point of listening to your podcasts, or are they just so fucking full of like obscure movie references by the end of it?
That's not obscure. That's Netflix. Everyone knows what that movie is.
Okay, that one is less so, but I've heard some other podcasts, and it happens. Plus, I live with you. It always happens.
Well, you know what? I have an encyclopedic knowledge of movies. I grew up watching HBO. What are you going to do? I'm sorry. You watched Maximum Overdrive 100 times.
Apparently not enough Maximum Overdrive, because you didn't even know that, you know, She Shook Me All Night Long was in the movie, so...
Well, you're right. I'm sorry. The most popular ACDC song of the 80s was in the movie Shocking. You didn't know that Stephen King and his friend Cocaine co-directed it. So, anyway.
Again, I knew Cocaine directed it, but let's move on.
Yeah. I asked people where they think they got what traits their kids inherited from them and their husband. And it's funny because the majority of the comments, as I mentioned, are women ascribing their kids' positive traits to themselves and the negative ones to their husbands usually. Lexosaurus Lex doesn't even say anything positive. She just says, my kids get being annoying from my spouse. You know what? Being annoying is just something that all spouses are, right? It's not a personality trait necessarily. It's just the side effect of being married to somebody.
Right. If she has some specifics to drop here, then perhaps.
Lexosaurus Lex, hit me up with some specifics as to why your kids are annoying and how that matches up to the way your husband is annoying. Like, I'm sure Mom and Barry can say some of those, can make some comparisons about the ways my 10-year-old is annoying. Yeah,
like, for instance, Lexosaurus Lex. This is spitballing here. If it's really annoying that your kid never puts their clothes in the hamper, or they don't wash their own dishes, or they put their empty beer cans right next to the recycling and never put them into the recycling.
First of all,
or that they leave their socks everywhere. Hold on, I'm not done. I want to give her options.
I would like to clarify that our children do not drink beer and do not leave their empty beer cans.
I'm saying theoretically.
Okay, well, they also
children. You don't know their life.
They also get their inability to load the dishwasher, which has come up a lot here. The fact that they just put fully formed boxes into the recycling bin without folding them, just on top of the bin. There's like 7. It's like a Jenga tower. We could fit 300 things in there, and you just stack them. It's just unbelievable. Lexosaurus Lex, you know what? Hit me with some specifics. We'll do a whole episode on your husband and how annoying he is. Ronnie Hagee, who comments a lot, RONI_Hagee, HAGY, says, my kid is so stubborn, rebellious, and impatient. He only gets one of those from me. He's also kind, compassionate, and thinks Trump is a villain from a Marvel movie. All me, baby. Okay, first of all, perfect example of somebody saying all the bad
Trump
stuff.
is a villain from a Marvel movie.
I said that. What did I say?
It cut out.
Oh, okay. So what I'm saying is this is a perfect example of somebody saying all the bad stuff or most of the bad stuff comes from my husband or the other spouse, and all the good stuff comes from me. But I do want to say thinking Trump is a Marvel villain is not a trait. It's just being aware of life and paying attention and having common sense and maybe picking up on some of your opinions. But it's not necessarily a trait, right? Unless you mean like he has common sense and that's a trait that he got from me. But a lot of these comments are along these lines where a woman says, here's the bad shit that my kids get from my husband or partner and the good shit they get from me.
First of all, do we know Ronnie Hagee is in fact a woman?
Yeah. She comments a lot.
Okay. Same.
Yeah. Loyal listener. Thanks, Ronnie. Unless it's Roni, in which I apologize.
Regardless, okay, sure. I mean, I'm sure lots of men will say the same thing. I mean, like,
yeah, well, they don't. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, so they don't comment, right? But this is an opportunity. Although one guy commented that his kid gets all the ADHD from him, so he owned up to it. I'm willing to own up to some of this stuff. 5UK4 says that her kid gets procrastination from dad and empathy from me. Okay, you're the I mean, come on. And then she says he also has ADHD, which is definitely from me, but I still blame his dad, which is just some bullshit, right? And this is what happens. Look, a lot of this is obviously lighthearted and jokey, both of these comments and in the way that you and I and a lot of couples, I think, give each other shit. Where like if you see the kid make a mistake or do something annoying or whatever, a lot of times as a joke, you'll be like, oh, he gets that from you or whatever. It's not always a joke, half joking, dead serious, as I say sometimes. But it is it's kind of a fun thing to do if you have a good kind of playful relationship with your spouse to insult them for your kid's shitty personality, right?
Okay, for sure. Although I want to touch on something there because where she says, he gets empathy from me, you kind of scoffed and you're like, well, oh man, please.
Well, congratulations, Mrs. Empathy, right?
Well, I mean, yes, congratulations, Miss Empathy. That's amazing. More people should have that.
That's true. I agree with that, yeah.
But, it depends how you're taking it. As you know, and we've talked about, because I don't think we only have to bash each other and all dads who are clearly inferior in every way in this episode. We can talk about the real stuff.
Thank you.
And, I'm a very sensitive person and I have a very big heart and I feel a lot. And I think it's to a fault sometimes care about things that like perhaps would be better served if I didn't care so much. And we know that Munch is perhaps even above that. Like he has a huge heart and he feels and he cries and he wears his heart on his sleeve and,
But that's the thing. I think part of that is what feeds anxiety too, right? Like your feelers are out all the time. Your emotional radar is so high tuned. Does that make sense? That you just everything hits you, and so I guess maybe anxiety and empathy sort of go hand in hand. Whereas I am closed off, and I'm not saying I don't have empathy. I just don't care about it. I can understand what people are going through and like have compassion. I just try not to focus on that stuff so that I don't get the anxiety that sort of comes with it. I choose to ignore it is what I do. And it's beautiful.
Sure. I can see how it can cause more anxiety. Although, I want to step away from specifically empathy being the term that we're using here, but, just feeling in general, being a big feeler. I think it makes pretty good people. So yeah, I'm like for it. I think that, being passionate and caring is like this blessing and a curse, right? It's harder to be someone who cares so much about things.
Right,
and I'm talking about him specifically because you see your kid who has all these huge feelings, and especially when they're like 10 like him and they're not learning how to process them. It's really hard. But yet it's one of my favorite things that I love about him.
Right. It's just finding the balance and helping them,
Right.
find the
Which,
balance themselves so that they're not curled up in a ball like, Professor X, and he's a telepathic, and it just overwhelms him when he hears the screams, of all the people in pain, right? That's not even obscure. That's X-Men stuff. That's fucking right down the middle mainstream shit. I see you shaking
no idea
your
what
head.
you're talking about. I'm going back to my cookies.
So Epi Painter says that her kids are generous and thoughtful, and they get that from her, but they're overactive and sensitive, and they get that from him. Again, with the bashing of the husbands. Mama Said No says, saving everything for me. So she's the hoarder, I guess. She saves everything.
You know that you asked people these questions, right? I mean, it's not like everyone just started DMing you out of nowhere, guys. It's not like just everyone of his followers just started DMing and husband bashing.
Please don't give
That's what I
context to
do
these
over
things.
on my Instagram page. That's what we do there.
So Mama Said No says her kids save everything, and they get that from her, and they shut down when angry, which they get from the husband. So again, these husbands, I think, are just emotionally stunted, I think is what we're learning from this. Mama Sure says her kids get the smarts from her and the stubbornness from the husband. Nick Knack 282 says my kids are smart asses or my kid is a smart ass and always thinks he's right, which he gets from daddy, but he's got a great sense of humor, cracking sense of humor. So maybe she's from Ireland or something, and she gets from her. Again, these women are just.
Wait, okay. Stop bashing the women. Jeez.
I gotta counteract it. There's a husband bashing left and right.
Are you their husband? I mean, maybe their husbands are all like,
you know what?
Real situation.
Maybe I'm gonna take the fifth on that question.
No. I think that some of these, definitely. But for instance, I would not say that our kids get the smarts from me and stubbornness from you. First of all, I'm probably more stubborn, so I'll own that one.
Well, that might be true.
But I would like to split the smarts. Although I think you're very good. I think that, I'm deferring all math questions to you for the rest of eternity.
Like that. I don't want.
I know you don't like it, but just no.
If I'm better at it than you, it's by that much. And I don't like this whole thing where you like to pretend I'm better at it so you don't have to do it. I'm much worse at wiping his butt, but I still have.
What's happening?
I'm much worse at wiping the little one's butt, but I still have to do it. I don't you're amazing at wiping
worse
butt.
At wiping a butt?
Look, I've seen you wipe a butt.
How low are you
You're
on
incredible at it.
Evolution spectrum that you can't wipe a butt?
I don't want to get into that. So look, it's funny. So there is some really petty stuff in here where, Big Perm 81 says they get their terrible sleep habits from their dad, but their perfect hair from her. When we're getting into physical traits, physical traits I think are almost easier to identify.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, because you can see them physically.
I think it's interesting, for instance, when Munch was born, he looked like this, it's your first kid and you're, checking everything out. And I remember even just the way his ear was shaped was exactly like yours.
That.
He looked exactly like you, only in infant form.
Congratulations to him.
Yes, because as I was about to say, as he's gotten older, he does look much more like my side of the family now. It's still a blend, but he's kind of coming out with the freckles. He doesn't have the chin. And
Thank God. Shots fired. Uh-oh. Okay, so I thought some of the petty ones were the best ones, right? So Shan Boo Boo says, my son has jokes that are horrible, almost as bad as his father's. Mrs. _Guffel, Guffel says, the girls are so gassy, which they get from him, which, I mean, maybe it's what you're feeding them. I don't know. Would you say the kids are gassy or anything like that? Can you point at that?
I'm looking at these notes that you gave me. Where the fuck are you? You're just
page
all
2.
over the place. I'm telling you, could you run this a better ship here?
A bunch of people said that their kids get their picky eating from their husband. Now, I think just all kids are picky eaters, right? I don't know how old these kids are, but your palate is just limited. Unless you're like one of those super parents who brags about their kid eating sushi at 3 years old. Odds are, from like the ages of like 3 to 12 or something like that, your kids are pretty picky, and they're interested in only the handful of stuff they want to eat, and they're not really adventurous. Now, would you say anything like that? Like, I'm
well,
a
yeah,
little
to
bit
some degree.
picky,
Although
but
I feel like, and perhaps part of this is the kids. Like, Munch is definitely a much more adventurous eater than the
he's
Hammer.
willing to give it a shot.
The Hammer is like,
But he's
as
older.
low as you could be on adventurous eating.
Yeah. He eats the same
As you
3
could
things
possibly
every
be.
day.
And yes, he is 5 or just turned 5. But Munch was definitely open to more things at that point.
You think
but
so?
Yes, definitely. But I would say that there are some things like, and we've even talked about with like your family and stuff, like them having like a taste for olives and like loving that and stuff. I think some of that might come from
the Italian side
a little bit, like
Yeah.
some of the, I don't know, taste buds. It seems possible.
Well, the fact that they love champagne comes from you and your side. You giving them champagne from a very early age to get their palates.
Okay, first of all, everyone knows I'm not sharing champagne.
Even with your kids. But I like a lot of this, the fun of this is being like, oh, my kid has a good sense of humor just like me, or he's stubborn just like you. I don't think there's ever a scenario in which where I'd be like, he's not eating his broccoli, he gets that from you. Like, I don't think that there's much, right? There's not a lot of mileage in that one.
No. But there's actually No Chill Preschooler.
No Chill Preschooler, yeah. Very funny kids. Yeah.
Who, their account's awesome on Instagram, and she has one something about like every time my kid walks into a door, like me and my husband are just like, he got that from you, like pointing fingers. Like, yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah, right. That's the thing.
Please, less fun.
When something funny happens, the picky eating one though is not so good. So Audrey Lovejoy says they get their interest in the world from me. All their good traits come from me, of course. Like, obviously she's joking, but she didn't even throw out anything. I should have asked, name some good traits that you come from your spouse or whatever, right? So if someone had asked me that, I would have said kind of your empathy, and your sensitivity, your big heart. Like at least our 10-year-old has that. The 5-year-old is a sociopath, so I'm not entirely sure.
So that's from you. That's from you.
I'm happy to claim that one. I would say the 10-year-old's kind of penchant for theatricality, for a lack of a better term. He loves to go big with that kind of stuff, which I think, again, it's another double-edged sword, right? Where he can be a bit of a drama queen, which I would say.
Excuse me?
We've had some incidents, I think, where you have overreacted to a few things, perhaps.
This has never happened.
Oh, my God. There was one time, listeners, where you threw a lit candle across the house and the wax dripped all over your own couch. This was before when we had just moved in together, and then we had to spend the night like trying to use a paper bag to iron up the wax on the couch. That was a red flag. I said, look, if I can go back in time.
No, I threw something else at the candle, and that got the wax on the couch.
Well, maybe. Regardless, that was like fucking, if I could go back in time, like red flag city, like I don't know about this one. I might have been out.
I'm sure I could dig up a few of those for you as well, but
so
not nearly as theatrical.
A lot of people did mention like tempers and stuff, which I think, everybody has a temper, but I do think that he gets some of his the bigness of his emotions, sort of in general, probably from you.
Sure,
which is
absolutely.
Not always a bad thing. I'm not saying it's always a bad thing, but.
Well, I am a Scorpio, or passionate, which is a really awesome thing until, but it's.
Astrology is meaningless.
I know. But I do think I'm a little bit of a Scorpio, though, by their definition.
But that's the thing. Everybody's a little bit of something. You could look at every sign and you could find a couple of characteristics that match up for whoever you are.
Okay.
People just pick and choose. They cherry pick.
I have oddly dated like 3 people whose birthdays were within like, and I have friends too. You know, like one of my best friends, her birthday's like the day after mine. I've had a lot of people in my life whose birthdays are literally right there, who I would not in any way describe in that manner. Even talking about our friend.
But doesn't that
I wouldn't
invalidate?
say she's super passionate and over the top or anything.
But doesn't that fact invalidate the whole idea of astrological signs meaning anything? If you know people born at the same time as you and they're not like that, shouldn't we all be like our stupid signs?
I'm just saying that I fit the mold a little bit of it. That's what I was going to say. Like, yeah, sure, I don't believe it, but I'm just saying there are other people who are not even close.
Well, I'm Virgo, and they're supposed to be like type A's and like super organized, and I'm neither of those things. Probably because of my non-existent ADHD, you jerk.
Okay. But yes, when you first said theatricality, I thought you might also mean for Munch his love of musicals, which of course you guys get for me. But that's a little bit, I think.
But does loving that kind of stuff, how much of that is a personality trait and how much of it is just the influence of the stuff that he's been exposed to because you're his mom?
Sure. Nature versus nurture there a little, I was going to say.
Yeah. See, we're getting into the science today. Astrology and genetics.
This is now a science podcast.
Maximum Overdrive, astrology, and genetics. We're crushing it. So I thought this was a good one. Mego_Saur, S-A-U-R, like Megasaur, says gets his impatience and temper from his dad, definitely. Intelligence and thoughtfulness from me, but striking good looks from dad too. So I guess it all balances out. Now, what I'm wondering is, did you write this under an alias? Talking about striking good looks. You do think I'm impatient.
Well, impatience and temper, sure. Like, you will say how Munch, for instance, is perhaps a little bit bigger in some of his emotions, but you've even admitted that when I get angry or frustrated with kids, it tends to be like even keel, even keel, even keel,
yes.
even keel, even keel. Flip the F out, like voice only dogs can hear.
Where I'm at a simmer all the time, yeah.
Yeah, I think a low boil, we might say, not a simmer, but a low boil.
So I've had this conversation with Pete, who says his wife, their dynamic is the same, whereas he and I operated kind of like a 7 all the time, and our wives are like 1s, and then when they explode, they hit like 30, right? So, which is in a lot of ways a lot more terrifying.
Yes, but at the same time, at least it takes you a while to get to 30. Right? Rather than always being.
Sure, but when you get to
7
30,
sounds like an underestimate, frankly, but
when you get to 30, it's just mass destruction, right? So, that's not good either. The lesson here is that we're both terrible at this. I thought this one was really petty. Nina_9110 says they get their smarts and artistic qualities from me, and they get astigmatism from their dad. That's all you're willing to give them?
Actually, I think that's the best one. Astigmatism. I mean, what are you gonna do with that? It's not an insult.
It's not.
Probably.
Well, it's not a compliment.
Astigmatism?
I'm not saying it's an insult, but she didn't she could have said nothing. Instead, she said astigmatism, and she didn't come up with something positive like sense of humor that they got from their dad.
I actually kind of take it kind of as like a joke. Like, they
sure
get all the good things from me, and they get this genetic thing that probably does come from
the one thing they got from their dad.
Astigmatism. I don't know. I mean, there are other things.
So a lot of the comments were about their kids having sass and their smart mouths. And this is a place where a handful of the women seemed happy to claim that. So Kelly L. Pitts, my daughter gets her sassy mouth and attitude from me, and it's infuriating to parent. Megan Kapner, one of my kids is a mini-me. I apologize daily for it. He's so frustrating. C.W. Bullard says, I definitely blame my wife for all the goddamn sass my kids have. I think both of us have a fair amount of sass. which has really
no.
ruined our own lives.
We're screwed.
It's funny because you when you become a parent, you're like, oh, I want my kid to have my sense of humor. I want my kid to be like sarcastic and stuff. And then when they start, manifesting those qualities at you, it can be very frustrating in a lot of ways. Like they're reflections of your worst qualities. So these things that people are claiming and stuff, not always a victory. Some of the traits that your kids get from you are some of the things that make you realize that you were probably a pretty infuriating person. They certainly made me realize how horrible I am, although I've known even before I had kids that I was pretty unbearable to be around sometimes.
And clearly you've dedicated your life towards improving upon those.
No, I am what I am, baby. I mean, you know what? Yeah, Tiger can't change his stripes. Thankfully, I'm the funniest person you've ever met, so it works out perfectly.
This is what I keep hearing from you.
Yeah. So I thought that. So I mentioned this earlier. I mentioned one of these earlier. So or a couple of these. So I mentioned where people were saying that they didn't necessarily get the traits from anybody. So Header_RN says, I used a sperm donor, so I can blame all the bad traits on that anonymous guy and take credit for the good ones, which is a good strategy, which is essentially what all of these women are doing anyway. They're blaming all the bad stuff on the father of their children.
Well, that's not true.
On themselves.
Now, there's that's a really good play. But some of these people are like, someone said the beautiful hair or amazing hair was from their dad.
Yeah.
From the dad.
From their dad. No, they said the terrible sleep was from the dad.
Yeah, like great hair.
Perfect hair was from themselves.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Come on. That was big perm 81. It's principalities and shit. And Fuzzdeg, Fuzzdeg says all the bad traits are from their paternal grandmother, period. And she messaged me and said that her mother-in-law is Scottish and they have a lot of problems. They don't get along. And she just blames all their kids' bad traits on the mother-in-law.
I don't think you needed to really elaborate, Fuzzdeg. I mean, we got that maybe you don't get along with the mother-in-law with that one sentence alone.
So I think so. It's funny because sometimes, so my grandmother, who lived to be, I believe, 107, died a few years ago. Amazing.
Yeah.
Was sort of a miserable person, and that was counterbalanced by my grandfather, who was like the life of the party, and you never met him, but he was just a party to be around, just a super friendly guy, a storyteller. And then my grandmother, one time when she was I saw her, she was living with us when I was in college, although I wasn't home, but I was home for Christmas, and I said, Merry Christmas, Grandma. And she said, just any old day to me. But that was after her husband had died, right? So understandable, but that was her general mood all the time. And there are a lot of times where I see my own mood and I'm like, oh, I bet you I got the kind of the misanthropy and the miserableness from my grandma. I don't know what this look on your face means. You're like, I should have paid more attention to his grandma, and you would have cut me loose.
No,
like
well,
through the wax on the couch.
Your grandma was older in her years when I met her, so I can't really speak to that. The only thing, because I can't talk about your grandmother and not bring up the fact that the only thing like that she stands out that she's ever said to me is I was
Christmas
wearing this red dress. Yeah. Again, it was at Christmas. It was like not long. I mean, we met a couple times by this time. It wasn't like the first Christmas. And she just looks at me. She's like, but how did she even say it?
You said, can you run in that?
Yeah. So like
run away?
Like nice dress. Can you run in that? It was just like it was a random statement.
I don't know why I would want to, but I feel like you should have been scared, like that movie Ready or Not, where the woman marries into a family and then she's running for her life. But yes, that was very strange. But you didn't know my grandma. I mean, obviously, maybe she changed a little bit after my grandfather died, but certainly when my grandfather was around, the dynamic informed kind of our perception of her and stuff. And she was lovely. I loved her. She was great. But I do sometimes see some of my own negative characteristics and wonder if they came from her. So it is possible to. get it from grandma.
I have heard nothing but awesome things about Grandpa and how fun and nice and life of the party he was. And so do you think that perhaps this is the dynamic that has come along again for your generation?
Whereas you are the
Only
life of the
your
party
grandma now?
and I'm the miserable one?
Yes, that.
So
and that's why we even out.
I see what you're doing, and I don't like it. Once again, you are doing what all the commenters did and taking credit for all the good stuff and throwing all the bad stuff on me. Luckily, I'm not
even saying our kids got it so far.
No,
I'm
just
saying I'm a better person.
Well, I think that much is clear to anybody who's ever listened to us on the podcast or visited our separate pages. You're definitely a better person, 100%. Just don't have any lit candles near you because the wax, it was really ruined the whole night. That ruined that couch.
It ruined my night. I was the one supposedly going out to meet friends, and then I had to fix the couch.
I wish I could remember what the argument was. An argument? I don't know. Who knows what it was? It was probably about the fact that one day when we had kids, they were going to have my hair. It wasn't even
us arguing. I swear that's not even the case. I was frustrated by something, and it happened. Because at those days, we didn't really argue.
What do you mean those days? We never argue.
That's true. We never argue. Although I would say the first couple years, we didn't argue at all. It was weird. But we caught up. We're good. We're solid now.
It takes a couple of years, to get me out of my shell. And then you can see the real me who's doesn't listen and doesn't do the honey-do list.
This is true. The tiger doesn't change his stripes, but apparently sometimes he paints over them so they're obscured for a couple of years.
And then once the stripes are revealed, I darken them and they just get worse and worse, right?
Right. This is some sort of transition that happens after the marriage takes place, I think. But
anyway, look, if I had known how much of a fan of the film Maximum Overdrive you were, I never would have proposed. Straight facts. The movie's trash, and I'm ashamed of the fact that you love it.
I'm sure you knew. It's not. I'm not a fan of it. Oh my God, it's so annoying.
I don't recall a conversation in which we would have discussed Maximum Overdrive during our courtship.
You'd be surprised. No, you know what I want to do real quick before. We've heard everyone's comments, I think, and we know it was mainly shitting on Dad. But let's give a little give and take here. Even just. For instance, if someone says, the perfect hair, I think Munch, for instance, has obviously your curly hair. My hair's usually wavy, not, curly, though. But it's more my color. When it gets long,
which I don't let it do because it looks stupid. I look like Screed.
Yours gets crazy. Well, you did last year. It was a situation, but.
I loved it.
You had so much fun with that. But. Right now, for instance, everyone comments how the hammer looks like a miniature you. And that's spot on. His hair is dirty blonde. Don't know where that comes from.
Yeah, we don't know where that comes from.
No, I don't know. My grandma. Maybe we were back in the grandma pool.
Yeah, I don't have anybody in my family who had light hair, so.
Well, okay, so my sister did too. It doesn't matter. But anything else you want to take this last opportunity to talk about what I gave him for better or worse?
What you gave him? Well, one of our kids has dimples, which I think he got from you, because I don't have dimples.
Yeah, sure.
You didn't like that one?
The little one has a butt chin.
Where do you get that?
No, it's true.
Where do you get that?
What?
I don't have a
butt chin.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do have a little butt chin. We'll talk about it.
What the fuck is this? I don't have to take this.
You know what I mean by butt chin?
Yes, it's a dimple in the chin, like John Travolta.
You are touching it.
Get away from it. You know what? We're going to have to cut this short.
I didn't even mean just physical things there, but
No, I know. But you put me on the spot, and now I'm having trouble thinking of any of them, right? So just some of it is just, again, it's hard to draw the distinction between the stuff that they're interested in because they have similarities to you or because you've gotten them interested in it, right? So like one of our kids really loves music, and that would be Detective Munch, whether it's Broadway musicals or music I've introduced him to, like the Beatles and some rock stuff, whereas the Hammer doesn't seem to show all that much interest in that, right? Would you say that?
No.
So
yeah, no, he doesn't really like it. When Munch was the Hammer's age, we were like trying musical instruments with him and stuff like that because he was so into music. Whereas like he showed very little interest in sports, whereas the Hammer, and it's not like we're some big sports family that's like doing this all the time. Like the Hammer definitely has a lot more interest in that,
Yeah, and the physical stuff, yeah. I mean, they
both. The other day, of course, there was Munch saying, I think he said, because I'm a good writer. He was talking about himself. He's like, I'm a good writer. I got that from Dad. And I'm like, I'm also a writer.
I said the same thing to him. I said, Mommy's a writer too. I just think sometimes they like claiming stuff. I think he likes claiming stuff, right? As like a bonding thing.
Sure. He also told me earlier to get a job, so it's really on fire.
Whoa, Jesus Christ. I don't know. It's hard. It's easier to pinpoint the stuff kind of when it happens and be like, oh, that reminds me of you, or that reminds me of me, or something like that, right? So we should take a tally, and we can post it. We can put together all the good stuff they get from me and all the good stuff we get from you, and I'm sure that it'll be like 300 to 1. You all your good stuff, and then my one, the greatest sense of humor of all time, will be what they get from me.
We should definitely post for fun from what people know of us, or what they know of us online, whether it's physical attributes, because sometimes that's interesting to hear where someone will say like, oh, he looks just like blah blah blah, but you don't see that, right? And then also they can talk about how our children seem to get all of their positive attributes from you, which is, I'm sure, how it would go.
No, they would never say that about me. You jerk. I see what you do, and you flipped it on me. I appreciate that. I fell for it. Anyway, it was really fun. I'm sure, we'll have some more fodder about this kind of stuff now that we're paying more attention to it. Thanks to everybody who commented. Please, you can listen every week again on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your podcast. You can find both of us on Instagram at Daddenbury and Mom and Buried, respectively. Please check us out on YouTube, but not until we get some better equipment. I'm working on that. And in fact, tonight, when I think you're doing yoga, I'm going to do some browsing for some equipment. If anybody has any recommendations, let me know. And do you got anything to add before we wrap it up?
No, I would say that our kids are lucky to have both of us. I'm just going to stop. I could say so many things, but.
Wow. I noticed. Everybody noticed that you bit your tongue. And I take offense to what you were thinking and didn't say. But we can get into that offline. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And we'll be back, or I'll be back with somebody, either Mom and Barrett or Pete, depending on the equipment situation, next week. Catch you later. And thanks to Chevrolet for that.
Bye. Thanks.
I don't know why you would still be watching this isn't a Marvel movie, no matter how much I look like Paul Rudd, which you can deny it all you want. It's there, in the eyes, I think. I'm young looking like him. If you enjoyed the podcast, which you obviously did or you wouldn't be listening still, sign up on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you want to listen to. Comment here on YouTube, subscribe, hit that like button. We want to hear from you, comments, questions, dirty jokes, money, all the money you can give us. We'd love it all. Catch you next time.